This is Potatoes Gang. Today, a very important subject of whether our politics is hurting economic performance, whether the quality of life of Nigerians really suffers because of our politics, or whether it is enhanced by it. Ordinarily, government exists for a very clear purpose, the advance of the common good of all. It means that at the barest essence, what government exists to do is to ensure that value is distributed in society in a way that the quality of human life generally improves. But in many, many places, the politics actually leads to poor economic performance. And let's go off of our shores. South Africa just recently returned to economic recession. The only explanation for what has happened in South Africa, in spite of their infrastructure, in spite of the tradition of manufacturing and all of that, is that bad politics was hurting the economy. In Nigeria, many people accept that Nigeria would be much, much further ahead, quality of life, everything, if Nigerian politics was not as bad as it is. So, is politics hurting economic performance, and what can be done to change that? What can make politics become about the good of the small guy, which boosts the good of all? Because it's narrow-minded when a small elite think that once they can cream off at the top, all is well, which is what the politics of Nigeria typically has been. Politics, economic performance, the common good. What do we think in the Nigerian experience?
You said it all. Politics does hurt economic performance. And it's about the decisions, the people who have the responsibility to manage our commonwealth, the quality of decisions they make. What we have seen over the years, government to government, is that parochial interests override the decision to make laws and policies that affect the common people. So the first thought is, or from what we see, how does it benefit us, the ones who make the policies? So it's not about the policies that will have trickle-down effect so that people can benefit from it. And one typical example that stares us in the face is our banking industry. The flip-flops we have seen in the banking industry in the last 10 years, if you know what it has done to how the man on the street feeds, because the banking system is the engine room for developing our economy. There is no consistency. We say we have been doing banking reform since 2009. We are still building, talking about bridge banks. And that's the bank you said you have repositioned, sold off, and now it was acquired with about 300 billion. It has accumulated debts in excess of 700 billion. And the same management you put in place 2 years ago to resuscitate the bank, you said they have done a good job when they incurred debts. So there is panic in the system. There are withdrawals. The banking system is not liquid enough to support the growth of a small business economy, which is the engine room. Don't forget, BOI and NASME says we have about 49 million MSMEs in this country. If they don't have access to cheap funds, how then do we grow our economy? And it starts from the decision.
Even before we get into the infrastructures part, and you are talking about South Africa being in recession, they had a very, very good ally, brother in Nigeria. And let's start from the very beginning. Our politics, our brand of politics is hurting the economy. Let's look at governance, or what in corporate circles we call corporate governance. When the present administration came on board, it took months upon months of speculation, waiting to appoint ministers. And as at the time this was going on, PAM secretaries were holding sway. Now, add that on to the fact that close to years after that anomaly, the board of parastatals were not appointed. They were not constituted. And even when they were constituted, there were so many flip-flops that sent the very wrong signals to either investors and serious-minded people And that hurt us to no
But
end.
just even think of the fact that people have stopped doing business in Nigeria because there are elections next year. Literally, people are waiting to see the outcome of elections before they begin to make investment decisions.
The first thought is that there is uncertainty. It will not go well, or it might not. So, for even that thought to manifest, you know what they used to say about the former chairman of Federal Reserve Bank, Alan Greenspan? Because I'm just talking about policy pronouncements, that if you watch the movement of his eyebrows, it shows you how the American economy will move. We have people in government who make reckless statements, and they affect how investors, just to underscore what you're saying about people who, because what is happening now is people are holding back. Portfolio managers are even taking funds away.
Out of Nigeria.
So you see the stock market is beginning to crash.
Yes.
Our naira is beginning to dip against major currencies. Uncertainty fueled by the inconsistencies and lack of focus of the people in government.
In 1998, I wrote a book which managed to win some awards. It was titled Managing Uncertainty, Competition and Strategy in Emerging Economies. Uncertainty is so fundamental to choice. If there is a high level of uncertainty, decision makers do one of two things usually. They either hold back and don't engage in economic intercourse, or when they do, they hedge. And when they hedge, that means costs. And cost means uncompetitiveness. So that economy cannot compete relative to another economy that competes. But it's partly a function of the quality of people that our political parties manage to attract into public life. So the point is, political parties are critical to the success of modern democracies. The real role of political parties, first to identify a path forward, what we call an ideology. Next role is to recruit people of quality from different spectra of society, because, everybody must be represented. It's about inclusion. And then to socialize those people that are recruited into an understanding of the thrust of economic policy, of what improves the quality of life of people, so that they struggle in all their activity in the marketplace of ideas to get the best ideas that get society moving in the direction of continuous economic growth and improvement in the quality of life of people. I'm afraid, fortunately for us, our political party system has not quite worked out that way. It's been reduced to who is the toughest guy in the neighborhood, who is the crook who can bully his way through, grab ballot boxes, and people carry on as if that is the essence of public life, of politics. So it seems that...
But again, is it not because it's not a function of, again, policy? Because again, what happens is this is where the people should now come in. Talk is no longer cheap. We need to talk more, so we push the people at the helm of affairs, the decision makers, to the point where we get what we want. Talking about policy, let's just say, look at our electoral reforms. Where do we have henchmen in our political party system? It's because of what we have been left with in terms of the electoral laws and our constitution. For instance, indirect primaries should stop. Ballots should be collated at the polling booths and announced electronically.
We saw June 12th how that went.
So incidences of ballot box snatching will go. If we can paste election results at the polling centers.
It's not about muscle men.
So it's about what can we gradually do to curb the excesses of, so that our political parties can then get there. Because what will happen is that the system becomes more transparent. Better people will now find reason. Because the better people, if they don't have the cash as it is today, there is little or nothing they can do in our political system.
But you see, the way the parties are structured today does not give one much hope, because
the laws can change that.
Yes, the environment is not attractive for people to come into politics, and there is a strong need for us to know that beyond passion, when we're talking of leadership of political parties or governance, beyond passion to lead, the knowledge gap is a major disaster in our hands. People express passion to lead. They could be strong men,
they have nothing to offer.
Be henchmen, but they have little or nothing to offer. The skill set is missing. For example, if you do a scan of the outgoing team in government across the states, ask the leaders at every level, to define the difference between development and growth. They don't understand it. They believe make money, collect money from federation account, spend it,
money,
and that is it.
Government,
But not looking at the quality of life that will come after 4 years.
Charles was making a point about being able to change things through laws, policies, and we had example. I like to tell the story of South Korea quite a bit, which had similar politics to our politics. Until the Electoral Commission said, look, we can't continue like this. And they forced debates into the system as a fundamental part of it. So those who couldn't articulate points of view began to drop out of the political process. And we know where South Korea is.
And that is the real
of
essence.
that difference, yes.
That is the real essence. We are going to have the consistency. I know Reverend Fathers and Imams and Sheikhs, some of them, without necessarily mentioning names, are trying to galvanize people, are trying to ask people to stand for their rights, and are trying to ask people, go out there, no other person can do it for you except you. And I think our educational system and education has to change. You know, the kind of education we have will be such that people should be able to say, yes, I can, yes, we can, and together if we have the right voice and we have the right thinking, we will stand and we'll say never and never again.
Because let's take a break and we'll come back.
Okay.
And we can get to this, clear essence. And as we go to the break, we'll talk to the people on the streets, get their inputs into this very important matter, because society is going nowhere if politics is just about share the gala, share the booze, and the people are wasting away. No progress.
When the government is saying that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
I've not really been concerned about what the politicians or the leaders can do for me. I've been more about what I can make happen, in my own circle, affecting my own people and the people who are actually very close to me. And that actually goes a long way in future in how, you're able to lead people if the time comes. So basically, politics in Nigeria, it's getting a bit better compared to how it used to be. But I still don't think we are there yet. And basically, people are, getting more enlightened and wiser about why they should vote and how to go about it. So people come out more. I just feel for leaders to be able to run the country better, they'll have to rise above individualistic concerns like what I'm supposed to gain, what's in it for me, what's in it for my family, my brother, to, I guess, broader concerns of the society or Nigerians as a whole. And I think that's the best way. If everybody who's put in power has that mentality, then I guess we'll keep getting better.
I affect Nigeria because, one, there's close border. Things now are very difficult now in Nigeria. It's not that we are not capable of doing it, but at least the president forgive us like 1 month or 2 months before the close border. So the moment the president entered, he closed border. So things were very difficult to Nigeria now. It affects my own pocket. Well, like my younger brother now is in Krutek. Before, school fees in Krutek was 50,000, 45,000. We can afford it, but now school fees now is about 80,000 naira. And so the thing affect me. In textbook now is about 5,000 naira, 4,000 naira. Everything now is very difficult. Bag of rice before was 9,500, but now it's 16,000 naira. Bag of pure water before was 80 naira, 100 naira, now it's 150. Pint of garris before was 200, 250, now it's 300, 350. So things are difficult now.
Okay, we are back, and I was talking about, Aki coming in and the fact that Nigeria has examples around the world to look at. Venezuela, very much like Nigeria, crude oil reserves, has had plenty of this since before Nigeria found crude oil, but it's one of the most miserable places to live on the planet Earth. On the other hand, South Korea, introducing debates and all of that, we know where they are. Ghana is way ahead of Nigeria. Nigeria is down there on the so-called failed states index. Why? Because government changed repeatedly.
Rwanda,
yeah.
And they are all there. I mean, going back to the basics, perhaps Nigeria is the only place that I know, I might have limited knowledge here, but that I know that you have a policy somersault in such ways and manners that you have multiple exchange rates. How does this help? Double digits, triple digit inflation, double digit and triple digit interest rates that does not help SMEs.
No, triple has not happened yet. Double maybe, but not triple.
And I can go on and on. This has discouraged SMEs and what have you. And then we have replaced that, perhaps for good reason, disbursing funds, and giving 10,000 naira to people. How many people are you going to be able to cover and cope with? Not to talk of the infrastructure deficits, not to talk of the security deficits.
In terms of the politics,
all these have just gone to kill the economy.
Why is the political process, why are the politicians not able to see the damage? Because this is like shooting yourself in the foot. It may seem like you're getting away with it short term.
But the answer is obvious. If you don't have capacity, people can't give what they don't have. It again comes back to what you talked about, the recruitment processes of the political parties. They are closed. They are like cliques, cartels.
Cults, actually.
Cults. We know who we want because they don't brook opposition. And opposition is one thing that is key to democracy. Freedom of speech, ventilation of ideas. Because that's what makes a society.
The reason why this is so is basically from where you started from. No clear vision, no clear ideologies, and where those visions seems to be rearing their heads, there is no.
But
there is no discipline.
Should the counterpoint not force a change of thinking? Because the counterpoint is that we're going to descend into anarchy.
That's where
because
we're heading
what we are
so
doing is not sustainable. It does not matter who benefits. We are thinking that we have cornered this system. It is not sustainable. In a few years, Nigeria will be in anarchy if we don't get changes. If we don't begin to ensure that the ordinary person gets a better quality of life, we will just descend into anarchy.
What better evidence do you now require to see the lack of vision and the lack of direction? And so we have people of stomach infrastructure, dancers around that eventually take up governance. Anarchy, as far as I'm concerned, is like here since yesterday. We are here, and I think the thinking must change. And I think I agree with you absolutely that when we are going to be copying the very good examples of the North Koreas,
South Koreas
that you have mentioned, even going to South Africa and going to Ghana, we must have intellectual philosophy of kings that should drive direction, that should be able to carry the holy poly around, and then be able to deliver on the dividends of democracy.
I think part of the way out is to drum or drill into the heart of our political leaders and political parties the essence of inclusiveness. If you keep people out of administration of politics,
they don't listen.
It heightens hate speeches, and hate speeches gather and help to create uncertainty in the environment, panic.
In the world we live in today, nothing is given, you take. So it's about galvanizing the people to demand for what we
Absolutely.
need.
In that sense, has civil society not failed Nigeria? Because part of what civil society does is sensitize everybody, the illiterate poor, the politician who thinks he's got it all, but is short-sighted about where we are heading.
The civil society is coming back and saying, we looked at it, and I think poverty is taking over and ravaging, and people are really not ready to listen to voice of reason. But we must not stop.
But look at the statistics. Look at the statistics. What it's saying to us. First, we get the Brookings Institution's work that says to us we've overtaken India. Nigeria is now the biggest collection of the absolute poor on the planet Earth. Then Bill Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation comes out with this new one that says by 2050, 40% of the world's poorest poor will be living in Nigeria and GDR. Now, the great irony of it is Nigeria and GDR, from a natural resource point of view, are amongst the wealthiest countries on earth.
In
Then we
terms
see
of
natural resources, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's what we see of Venezuela, for example. Isn't it time that the masses just rose against this dependence on natural resources and not having thinking people to show the country direction? Look at Philippines, what happened when Marcos oppressed the people. The bishops, Cardinal Singh, of course, was at the center of this whole thing. Their homilies roused quiet, small women who poured onto the streets with their rosary beads. It was rosary beads that defeated Marcos.
Defeated the tanks.
The tanks came out, Marcos rolled out the tanks, and Ramos, his general, was leading them. And he looked at these women with their candles and their rosary, and he looked at himself and asked the tanks to turn around, and they faced the palace.
Super.
That's how Marcos exited.
Super.
Because you go to the Middle East, we used to laugh at the Arabs, but look how brilliantly Arab sheikhs have made their countries modern. Dubai is the classic example we often talk about, but it's not just Dubai alone now. They're competing with Dubai around the whole place, whether it's Qatar, whether it's
Saudi Arabia is
Oman.
beginning to do a glass nose of a kind.
Oh,
and
yes.
try to open up, women can drive,
So-
and all that kind of.
So we see that happening to those we used to laugh at, and we are falling further and further behind. I think that there must be a certain new, let's call it anger, catching the Nigerian elite. Business community is a big failure for me in Nigeria. The business community keeps talking about good government. Business community never honestly goes out to look for good candidates to push. You guys enter the political arena, we'll back you. But they wait back until they have seen some criminals elected, and they go and try and do deals with them to accommodate. It's not sustainable. So the business community is a failure in this business. Civil society is a failure. We're seeing our country sliding.
Where do we position the media?
Or media is as much a disaster because
media has always been a disaster.
You know,
they're very complicit.
I dare say media is
know?
beginning to now open up a little bit more. What we are doing is all part of a media campaign to sensitize people and to encourage whether the traditional or the electronic media and then the social media to be very, very responsive. Follow the path, do it responsibly, and deliver the goods.
You see, maybe if you just take some few minutes to just focus on the media, what we are talking of, let's even just take the traditional mainstream media. Let's take an example of what is happening in the United States, where you have an imperial president or who wants to be imperial in a democratic setting. The biggest checkmate that the United States presidency has today is the traditional media. When you talk about the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the CNN, they have held him so accountable. The man has become so frustrated. That's what we are talking about.
Media.
That's the kind of media we are talking about. That looks What I'm saying is, look at government, because we are talking about politics and economic development.
Yes.
What is it that government is? Our media has been so compromised that even when they have access to this information that they can release, that will put governments on its toe.
Well,
they soft pedal on it.
I dare say that there are exceptions to those rules.
Yeah, of course. There are always exceptions to the rule. Obviously there are
very, very bold.
There are exceptions to the rule.
You need to see some of the op-eds that.
And it's not only about fighting; it's about just educating and getting people engaged. Look, one of the most important functions of the media is the so-called status conferral function of the media. If the media, Akin Fatunke is seen in the media frequently, there's a halo that develops around Akin Fatunke. People take him seriously. But if Akin, God forbid, were to be a 419er, then it means that they will look up to a 419 guy as a model of society.
Or a money bag.
You see, yeah. Which is what has happened to us. If you can pay enough, you get on the front pages of newspapers and you become a role model. And you may be the role model society does not want. Media has a critical responsibility there. But we must go. We must go because our time is short. But you can follow us on social media. We come to you. You can see it as it's put before you. Facebook, Instagram, and all of that. Surely, we all can make a difference. We can make political life lead to better quality economic life for all of Nigerians. Enjoy it.